The opinions expressed on this show do not necessarily reflect those of Talk Radio AM 640.
10, 9, 8, 7,
Extreme radio for extreme times. This is A View from Space with the Spaceman on Talk Radio AM 640.
I'm the Spaceman. This is A View from Space. I'd like to welcome you in if you're driving around town right now listening on AM 640. I'll welcome you in. Or if you're listening to me right now on the AM 640 app at work, probably, I welcome you in too. Or if you're listening to me right now on Shaw Direct on channel 865, picking up the signal there, I welcome you in also. Or if you're listening to me on your 3 or 4G personal communication device via the Stream the World software, I welcome you in. Or maybe you're what some call the best seat in the house, in front of your Mac, your PC at home, logged on to 640toronto.com, picking up the live audio streaming there. I welcome you in. Wherever you are in the world, I welcome you in. It's been one powerful Illuminati event-filled week. First, it was the phenomenon known as Pokemon Go, that craze that was made manifest all week. And finally, the Republican Party did, in fact, choose Donald Trump as their candidate for the United States presidential election. As a matter of fact, he accepted the nomination the night of the full moon. And it had something to do with it. It wasn't just any old full moon. On the very night, and the night that the moon is completely full, not waning, and not getting full, it was full that one evening, the night Donald Trump did his acceptance speech. A full moon potent with occult powers. How? This moon, just passed, is called the buck moon. Now, the buck moon takes its name from the young male deer who were born in the spring. They now, at this particular time, late July, begin to sprout, to grow their horns. You can see now them coming out of the young bucks' heads, the testosterone roaring through their body. It's the beginning of their young bodies becoming mature, making them aggressive and combative. You see, bucks fight for control of the female deer by fighting, butting heads, locking horns. Get it? Now, this exactly what Donald Trump is doing. Locking horns, butting heads, testosterone pumping. Horns in the world of the occult are a symbol of power. The horn prefigures strength. This is exactly what Donald Trump exudes. And that's why he's been chosen, not by the voters, the people, by the Illuminati, for the show of strength. Then, the International Committee upholds the ban this week on the Russians, and next week, mark my words, the entire Russian Olympic team is going to be banned from competing in Rio. That's all about to come down very early next week. It's simply more of the isolation and demonization of Russia I've been speaking about on the show for years. since the Berlin Wall fell. And I was on the air then. Now, there were the twin German attacks also. First, it was a 17-year-old Afghani refugee. Injures 4 people seriously, 2 critically, with a knife and a hatchet on a train near Würzburg in Germany. Then, they ended the week like they did last week with Nice. Just yesterday, the attack at a shopping mall in Munich. A blood sacrifice ritual for the Olympics in Rio upcoming. The Olympia shopping center was the target. An 18-year-old German teen kills 10 and then commits suicide. Both immediately within hours after the events, they were dubbed terror attacks by the elites. No, they weren't. They were drugged, mentally disturbed teens, unleashed on Germany to pound home the message of hatred and a war that will come soon to ensue, instilling fear in the people, upsetting their lifestyle, their way of life, the peaceful way of life they once knew. At any time now, at any country, you could be killed just going shopping. People in the EU are being pressured to change their way of life and accept the fact that the Middle East is a huge problem and we have to do something about it. But by far, the dominating, permeating story all week long was the new sensation Pokemon Go. Believe it or not, this kid's game, right, is the focus of tonight's presentation of AVFS on Talk Radio AM 640. Let me get right into that. I'll take this break right now. Let's break right now, and I'll come back with this phenomenon known as Pokemon Go. I'll spell it out for you. I'll show you the origins. I'm the Spaceman. It's Talk Radio AM 640, and I'm just getting started. I'm the guy they call Space. It's a view from space on Talk Radio AM 640. Emails. The only way I communicate, I've got 2 addresses. One is spaceman at 640toronto.com. The other space at 640toronto.com. They start rolling in before the show even begins. And thank you for the one that you've sent me. Now, I'm about to go deeper than a black hole into the actual origin of this Pokemon Go game. It started out as a cartoon show for children by one of the multinationals of Japan, Nintendo. One of the biggest, by the way. Pokemon is a Japanese word. It means simply pocket monsters. You probably already knew this. They've been on about it all week, incessantly promoting it. And it first appeared in the mid-1990s. Harmless, right? I mean, children as young as 3 would watch Pokemon. They loved that cartoon show. The images emblazoned on backpacks, clothing, all manner of merchandise marketing. It was a huge push. Now, all those people that grew up with Pokemon and the cartoons are now playing Pokemon Go. And some others are catching on too. Some of the gamers are just picking up on it too. And there were all kinds of stories promoting it, like it crashed when it was available in Canada. Well, the server couldn't take it. There's only 35 million of us, and half of us are over 50. Are you kidding me? Really, it's hype. The images of Pokemon Go, as I said, all over the place. Children all over the world were wearing them, thanks to Nintendo's incredible reach around the world. Now, beginning this week, we've noticed the rise in the Pokemon Go app, having the powerful, omnipresent, Illuminati-controlled mass media solidly behind them, boosting its popularity to unbelievable heights as users search for these little pocket monsters with their smartphones. This was accompanied by a dire warning to all players earlier this week. Yeah, an actual dire warning to all players. That's why they could pass it off as news. Hey, you could even die playing this game. The risk that people were programmed to take while playing would place them in all kinds of dangerous predicaments, even life-threatening ones, the Illuminati-controlled mass media spieled this week. Yes, the good old Illuminati trick of using fear to control and get your attention. Fear-mongering was used early on this week to get your attention. First, and to have a reason to tell you, to warn you about this new game, and then start promoting it. It had millions upon millions believing that Pokemon Go will inevitably lead you into a life-threatening position of which you have no control, because the game is so damn charismatic, so powerful, so invasive. It just takes over your life. Yeah. The Illuminati-controlled mass media even postulated different dangerous scenarios that could actually happen each day as we went into this. Yeah, each day they had a different story. Actually happened to unawares players. Things like, getting robbed, or wandering into the busy street looking to capture a rare Pokemon and being oblivious to the oncoming traffic that's about to run you over. The amazing thing is the Illuminati-controlled mass media said that these things had actually happened to a few players in real life, making it a news story. There was a fresh news story every day with supposedly somebody getting into a life-threatening predicament, all because of the control of this super game and the power it has over them. This is possession. The players become possessed. There's a lot more, much more, to Pokemon Go than really meets the eye. I wouldn't be talking about it on the show unless it had a demonic black magic origin. That's what I talk about. There are, if you do your due diligence, 72 demons from what's called the Goetia. Each of these 72 demons of the Goetia, all with various powers and abilities that the player, or should we say, the sorcerer, can strengthen in order to become a stronger competitor. The whole purpose is to train your Pokemon in this game to become stronger in their abilities and evolve into more powerful monsters. It's the Goetia. The Goetia is also known as the Lesser Keys of Solomon. It's also known as the Claviculia Salomon, as Regis. It's a black magic spell book on demonology, written by supposedly an anonymous person, but I'll tell you right now it was not. It was passed down from generation to generation from the very days that Solomon lived and was contacting demons and recording all of this and how to call them up. It was written in the 17th century, we're told, but I told you the real truth. It comes from the keys of Solomon. Now, all of the information comes from 5 books. The Ars Goetia, the Ars Theurgia Goetia, Ars and Paulina, and the Ars Almadel, and finally the 5th, the Ars Notoria. I don't have time tonight to go through all of the 72 demons in the Goetia that you're able to conjure up in incantations that are showing you in the book of Goetia, but allow me to give you a few examples of the Pokemon gamers and what they're dealing with these pocket monsters, the ones they're searching so frantically for. They are the demons of Goetia. In a cartoon form, of course, but not really. Because a cartoon form, if you call the right name, is not going to show up. The real thing is. One of the Pokemon is known as Haunter. You know, like a haunted house. Haunter. And of course, has the ghost type ability, which is to be able to, well, what do ghosts do? When you were a kid, it was spooky. He levitated, did he not? Yeah, he levitates. Casper the ghost levitated. The Haunter in Pokemon Go levitates and spookily haunts others. It's even more involved. From Gengar, if you spend the time playing the Pokemon Go game, which has even more sinister attributes than you'd find with the traditional ghost. For instance, Gengar has the capability to lower the temperature around itself or, and say, in a room it's in, cast spells and curses on others. What's very telling about these few ghost Pokemon is that they're all in purple. They're purple in color. In the world of the occult, the color purple represents the mauve zone. I touched on this on the show after the death of Prince, the rock star. The mauve zone, an area where an adept, a sorcerer, an initiate, can find the hidden demons of Qliphoth in the shadow realm of the dark side of the Kabbalah, the Tree of Life. The mauve zone is described in Kenneth Grant's book, a book called Beyond the Mauve Zone, as a method in which an adept, a sorcerer, would conjure up otherworldly entities, demonic spirits with supernatural powers. This is exactly what King Solomon was deeply into in the Goetia. He had access to this mauve zone, and now, in modern times, it's being facilitated by Nintendo and by the use of magical systems developed by black magic adepts like Austin Osman Spare and Aleister Crowley. Both claim to have actually established contact with interdimensional entities possessed of transhuman knowledge and power. What do you think of Pokemon Go so far? Both of these systems, by the way, involve the use of sexual magic to open hidden gates that have supposedly been sealed for centuries. So, in the world of Pokemon Go, the equivalent to Haunter, which is really an actual demon named Gengar in the Goetia, is described as one of the shadow Pokemon. Other demonic entities conjured up by this ancient sorcery that are now mirrored in the Pokemon Go game are known as Abra, there's Kadabra, and there's Alakazam. Now, these characters were originally intended to be introduced as Hocus Pocus by Nintendo, but for some reason, they were changed. Now, all of these names have been in front of you, programming you all the way through your life. Remember a band called Hocus Pocus? Yeah. No, okay. So, the change of Hocus Pocus was made to be Abra, one of the Pokemon, Kadabra, another one, and Alakazam, another Pokemon that you can catch in honor of the spell incantation. Now, abracadabra, of course, in the world of witchcraft and sorcery, is part of the occult belief of shaping the universe to the sorcerer's will. Exactly what supreme occultists like Aleister Crowley, Paulo Coelho, and others were out after. To find, to conjure up, then train and control these certain demons, to make them do the sorcerer's will. And I might add, a very, very dangerous practice. I'm not talking about walking into a busy street, oblivious to where you are. I'm talking about playing with demonic spirits that, if unleashed by you on your will, can destroy you. So, in the Goetia, all this found out by King Solomon in his evil days, finds that you can actually find, conjure up, and make the demon do your will. Which is now the Pokemon Go game that was sold to millions upon millions around the world this week as a fun game. And how fun? People are risking their lives to play it. That's how good it was and is. You better download that app now. You're going to be missing out. You won't be able to be in on any conversations with your friends. Peer pressure, too. To join the world of Goetia? Oh my, are we treading on very dangerous ground? Space, more in a moment on Talk Radio, AM 640. This is AVFS. I'm the guy to call Space. It's a view from space on Talk Radio, AM 640. Emails to spaceman at 640toronto.com or space at 640toronto.com. Thank you for the one you sent. Talking about Pokemon Go, it's the big rage out this week on the Illuminati-controlled mass media. It's been out for a while, but they really picked it up and ran with it this week. Filled the entire week with it. That's how much they want to push it. Why? I'm telling you why. You're becoming, if you're playing the game, a sorcerer, an adept, an initiate. And there's so much more to it. There's so many layers. The Illuminati never do anything for just one reason. It's always multi-layered. So, the Pokemon Go game actually takes you down the very same road that King Solomon went down in the Goetia to conjure up demons. And the demons that Solomon conjured up, the 72 demons of Goetia, are all Pokemon. Their characteristics are exactly the same. I've already described a couple, and there's more to come. Because the object of the game, Pokemon Go, is to capture and control demons so that the Pokemon will do the cell phone holders, the sorcerers' wishes. See how exactly the Goetia is like Pokemon Go? that game, that demonic world of Goetia. It's uncanny. The similarities. It's the teaching of sorcery on one of the highest levels. I'm not just talking about dabbling in some witchcraft. This is down deep. The music industry, pop music, rap, I don't care what kind of music. The music industry today is guided by an old adept of the occult by the name of Aleister Crowley. Take, for instance, the rap scene. Just like the old classic rock scene was, musicians using actual magic to create their art. Art, in and of itself, is magic, because you're creating something out of nothing. You see, the magical word abracadabra has Aramaic roots and literally means, as I speak, I create. It's a magical belief system that projects an illusion. It fools you. It makes the person watching or listening believe it, which makes it reality. It's really no different than the concept of the media or entertainment industry repeating a false truth, a lie, over and over and over, and still calling it a truth when it's a lie. Repeating it over and over and over until it's believed as the truth. One example of that going on a lot right now is the homegrown terrorism suspects, who are all, self-radicalized. Yeah, or very quickly radicalized by, like, in 15 minutes or so, as in the Nice Boulil perpetrator. Right. And have you heard the latest about that? When I was on about the truck, getting into that zone, on a 6-month state of emergency, they didn't even check the truck, they didn't even search it. It was allowed to go through. There were a couple of cops there, that's it. With thousands and thousands of people from around the world on the beach. Well, now there's an investigation. Just as I said, with the Orlando shooting, now there's an investigation on the SWAT team arriving 3 hours late, allowing the perpetrator to get the job done. So that's just a couple of updates on a couple of shows I've done in the last few days. Yeah, I guess you would say. And this has all just been happening. Back to Pokemon Go. Abracadabra is a spell used by witches and magicians alike. Oh, and by the way, Steve Miller, he had a song called Abracadabra, if you'll remember. It's also abracadabra, a Goshen magical phrase. Wouldn't you have guessed already by now, just with the first 20 minutes of this show? It's inserted into many kids' cartoon shows, too, and movies made for kids. Oh, abracadabra, abracadoo, scubby, Scubby-Doo. I mean, and there's even a cartoon character called Scubby-Doo. You see now where the origins of this programming come from. It's the occult. Abracadabra, as I said, is a spell used by witches and magicians with origins of praise. Yes, praise to the Gnostic deity known as Abraxas. Oh my God. Remember the Carlos Santana album called Abraxas? The million-selling single off of it? Black Magic Woman. Programming. That was the, excuse the word, monster track on that album of Abraxas. And Abraxas is a Gnostic deity, and the Goetia. You see, you cannot be a superstar in music or movies unless you have signed your life away to the Aleister Crowley way of doing things. He has so much influence on today, and he's dead. They're using his ideas that he put his body through to find. And believe me, as I get deeper into tonight's show, you will understand the price he had to pay. Oh, early physicians used to use abracadabra for healing powers too, which is no surprise since the beginning of the Hippocratic Oath starts out with talk of swearing to Apollo and other pagan deities. Yeah. Doctors today in the 21st century, an oath swearing to Apollo and other pagan deities. So, Pokemon Go employs this same practice. The little pocket monsters that everyone wants to catch have all the expected supernatural abilities like extrasensory perception, ESP, teleportation, the ability to take yourself to another realm using just your mind, and other psychic abilities. In fact, it's quite a well-known story that Nintendo uses King Solomon's ancient demonic conjuring methods, Goetian principles, in their products they make for kids. Your kids. There is no way you have a child under 17 in your house that you don't have a Nintendo product. There is no way there is a family out there that is without one. 100% blanket covered, for sure. You may or may not recall the Russian occultist Uri Geller actually sued Nintendo one time over a couple of their characters that they said they conjured up because he believed them to be modeled directly after himself with his supernatural powers to bend spoons with his mind. Yeah, the Russian occultist Uri Geller actually did a television show, and of course there was a trick to it, but with his mind he stared at this spoon, and it bent in plain sight. A magician's trick. But Uri Geller did it with his mind. Bending metal through thought. Do you remember Uri Geller's bending spoons with his mind? Michael Jackson was connected with him at one point. A very good friend of Michael Jackson's, it was said. Why? Well, to get Uri Geller's material out there into the world, and Michael Jackson was the perfect springboard used. He was the superstar in those days, and hey, he was hanging around with a guy who could bend metal with his head. Thought. That's how they do it. They piggyback them. They build the stars up and then laden them with this occult message and drum it through those people. You're actually the target. So, Michael Jackson used as the springboard for Uri Geller. When you examine the pictures, the characters of Nintendo and of Uri Geller, you can easily actually see the symbolism used that Nintendo stole. They do, in fact, come from the same occult origin. For instance, the lines. Oh, okay, I'll get into it in a moment. The lines on one Pokemon called Kadabra. That's next on Talk Radio AM 640. It's the Spaceman going through the origins of Pokemon Go. It's the Spaceman on Talk Radio AM 648 ABFS. Emails to spaceman at 640toronto.com or space at 640toronto.com. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the connection that I have with you through email. Thank you. TK writes, so far, it has led, Pokemon Go, has led people to dead bodies, murders, and cemeteries. 2 people actually fell off a cliff, and some people run over by trains and cars. Oh, I know, it just keeps on going. And you gotta be thinking that there's somebody working really hard late at night, burning the midnight oil at Tavistock, thinking this crap up. Seriously, I'm saying making this crap up about the news stories. People believe anything today. Anything. Seeing's believing. Or if they've got an authoritative figure standing in front of a camera that beams to the world with all kinds of flags or some kind of plaque behind them, making them look so official. If they say it, well, it's got to be true. L.I. writes, so glad you're weighing in on this Pokemon craze. I knew there was something off and dark about it, but then again, isn't everything that's pushed on us and popular? Oh, you're absolutely correct. It ain't getting in the Illuminati-controlled mass media unless it fits their agenda. And there's more on this agenda. Abracadabra, as I said, is a spell used by witches and magicians alike, and it's praise to a Gnostic deity known as Abraxas. Now, let me get into another Pokemon character that you can capture, that people are running all over the place trying to find, a Kadabra. Now, the lines on Kadabra's chest appear to look like the lightning bolts of the Nazi Party's SS Schutzstaffel, which conjures up the lightning symbolism of Lucifer, the fallen angel who fell to earth as a lightning bolt, the King James Version of the Bible says. And, of course, this isn't the first time we've seen occult symbolism appear in children's shows with a lightning bolt, shows that are geared towards children to teach them the basics of magic, like what I've just mentioned, the lightning bolt symbolism, rather. The lightning bolt was also used as symbolism by J.K. Rowling heavily in her Harry Potter series of books that taught the tenets of black magic spellcasting and power control through demons. But Pokemon goes much deeper. Both aimed at youth. Another example of the Goetia control of demons in Pokemon Go is taken from what's known as the Zener cards. Ever heard of the Zener cards? Oh, you know, but you don't know, if you know what I mean. Zener cards are cards used to conduct experiments in extrasensory perception, most often clairvoyance. People who can tell the future. The experiments for extrasensory perception, we're told, by perceptual psychologist Carl Zener. He designed these cards supposedly in the early 30s for his experiments into extrasensory perception, but I believe that he got them from King Solomon's demonic, the Lesser Key of Solomon, the Goetia. I don't believe for a moment any of this stuff is new. It's merely brought back into the modern times again as it was once, dominating in the ancient days, in the powers, the halls of the powers that be, of the great ones that ran the ancient world. And that's how they did it. That's how they used this power to consolidate their positions. Zener cards, you've seen them before. I know you have. are used to test a person's mental powers. They're part of the spiritualism movement that wanted desperately to unite scientific principles with religion through parapsychology. And many men who have delved into the occult, their ideas have played a great part in this movement. Carl Jung, for example, is a great example. In fact, you have seen Zener cards being used without really knowing or understanding it. It was predictive programming shown to you in a movie. Now, I was totally wrong if I said you know them because they have been in front of you. But if you've ever seen the Ghostbusters movie, and who hasn't, you've seen Zener cards. Wow. Yeah, you've seen Zener cards. They appeared in one of the opening scenes of that smash hit movie known as Ghostbusters. In Ghostbusters, and they do it through comedy, pushing the Illuminati's agenda of black magic through Bill Murray's comedy and his character. See, in the opening scenes, Bill Murray is character testing out psychic abilities with the use of these Zener cards. What's even more telling is that the Waves card are the exact same as on the Pokemon monster Kadabra. Kadabra in the Pokemon Go game has a similar anatomy to another Pokemon called Abra. There's an Abra and there's a Kadabra. But there are some differences. Unlike Abracadabra, Abra holds a metal spoon forged by its psychic powers. Remember Uri Geller? Bending spoons? Abra holds a metal spoon that he forged with his mind. What a powerful demon. The pentagram, the five-pointed red star, is also an occult symbol. Think about it for a moment. What's the communist movement about? It's a political system of power that's connected with the doctrine of the occult. Communists and the Illuminati both have the same goals. They both are fomenting the destruction of religion and the increasing influence of global government bodies. And soon into one global government body that I call the New World Order. The coming one world government. The red star symbolizes communism, but really it symbolizes Satan, Lucifer, with the red color symbolizing Edom. Or the red band that the Kabbalists wear around their wrists. Hollywood's made them famous. It's the bloodline of Cain. Edom. A King James version of the Christian Bible. Edom. That blazing star, as it's known, is the center of adoration from all occult groups. More on that when I return. Look out. Charles Manson warning. Next on Talk Radio AM 640. It's a spaceman and AVFS. I'm the guy to call space. It's a view from space. Talk Radio AM 640. Emails to space@640toronto.com or spaceman@640toronto.com. Thanks for the one you sent me. J.A. writes, Space Zener cards? They're prominent in a number of horror flicks as well. I remember the 84 flick Dreamscape. They were used to train or tweak the lead character's psychic abilities. Just as I explained earlier in the show. You see, the Pokemon Go. Pokemon are 72 demons, and there's actually more. There's like 600 or 700 of these things. Spin-offs of 72 demons from the Goetia, all with various powers and abilities that the player can strengthen in order to become a stronger competitor. The whole purpose is to train your Pokemon to become stronger after you catch one, stronger in their abilities, and evolve into more powerful monsters. The Goetia, also known as the Lesser Key of Solomon, is also exactly that. The way to find, conjure up, and control, train your demon to do the will of the sorcerer. And in this particular case with Pokemon Go, does the will of the cell phone holder. So I said, there's the 72 demons in the Goetia that are an exact mirror of what's in Pokemon Go. And the blazing red star in Pokemon Go, that blazing red star was prominent as a symbol within the Charles Manson cult that brutally, satanically, ritually murdered the Hollywood actress Sharon Tate and the family. The Tate murders were a notorious and brutal killing of 5 people by members of the Mansons family. Roman Polanski's friend died, an aspiring screenwriter, Wojciech Frykowski. And Frykowski's lover, who just happened to be the Folgers coffee heiress, Abigail Folger, died there too. And Sharon Tate with her kids. Sharon Tate was infamously known, of course, for her racy photo shoot in which she wore that red star of Lucifer. Remember, she was brutally murdered after the release of Rosemary's Baby, a film about a satanic cult that sought to create Aleister Crowley's Moonchild demon through sex magic rituals, which I cover a little deeper into tonight's show here on APFS on Talk Radio AM 640. And Sharon Tate was originally supposed to play the role of the mother of that demon spawn, who was to be the Antichrist. So it appears the purpose of the Pokemon phenomenon, especially Pokemon Go, the game, is to make contact with these monsters, these entities that can then be used for their powers. And they have a mutual contact with the player, magician, sorcerer, whatever you want to call them. Can you imagine? The Illuminati have actually turned everyone's focus on the demons of Goetia through a damn game. Can you imagine how happy these demonic spirits are, praising the Illuminati, ready to do anything that they want once they have received all of this adoration from this multitude here on earth, worshiping them, running around trying to catch them. Oh my God, what a spell. And a spell it is. It spells it out in the Pokemon song, plainly. You know the Pokemon song? Pokemon, gotta catch them all. A heart so true. Our courage will pull us through. You teach me, talking to the demon, and I'll teach you. Pokemon, gotta catch 'em all. The contact between the monster and the practitioner. That's what it's about. And with contact comes a contract, just like in the world of music and movies in Hollywood. If you want to be that superstar, bow down to Aleister Crowley's teachings. Write about them. Disguise them, but promote them. This contract between the monster and the practitioner is no different than what we've seen from ceremonial magicians like Aleister Crowley, Jack Parsons, the guy who invented rocket fuel, the guy who JPL is named after. It's not the Jet Propulsion Laboratory at all. It's the Jack Parsons Laboratory. That's the true hidden meaning. Those two guys, especially Aleister Crowley and Jack Parsons, attempted to contact various spirits and entities in order to learn from them. Can you imagine, as I said, how happy the demons are that all these kids, mere children, in the eyes of these spirits that have lived for thousands of years in the spirit world, worshiping them under the guise of the spirits being taught by them? I would suggest it's the other way around, and possession would be the bottom line. In fact, all of Aleister Crowley's Thelema religion is taken directly from his contact with that spirit world. Aleister Crowley was said to have had a guiding spirit that he contacted called Aiwass. Teach me, and I'll teach you, is indeed the axiom of any good occultist magician. Similar to other superhero tales, too, were being spoon-fed through the Illuminati-controlled mass media via entertainment. The concept of evolution plays a crucial role in Pokemon Go. The entire game is in fact built upon first making contact with these monsters, as I said, and then trapping them, which would be conducted by the magician as they trap the entity in a magic triangle. After they trap them, they must train them and make them evolve into the next higher-powered character demon. The lyrics to the Pokemon theme song also lay it all out plain and simple for you, this kind of thinking. It goes, I will travel across the land, searching far and wide, each Pokemon to understand the power that's inside. Could the song lyrics be any more blatant? This is a powerful tool. Don't kid yourself. It's a powerful tool to promote and teach transhumanism. Are you up to speed on that? Because we certainly have to do our research if we want to keep up with what's going on and be on guard. What is transhumanism, you might ask? It's the Illuminati global and intellectual movement, cleverly concocted to transform, to change the human condition by developing and creating sophisticated technologies, as they're doing now, then, in turn, making them easily acceptable and accessible to a great number of people, disguised as simple entertainment. Why? To move and to shift our human, intellectual, physical, and psychological capacities further and further down, deeper into the world of the black magic power and spells. Essentially, Pokemon Go is picking up the J.K. Rowling witchcraft teachings and taking it to a whole new level. Because, unlike J.K. Rowling, You just have to read the book and take in the knowledge. Pokemon Go requires your first psychological and physical participation. The Harry Potter movies and books required only your participation in the psychological way. But this augmented reality game, Pokemon Go, requires your physical participation as well. A step way beyond Harry Potter. Space with more. Pokemon Go, tonight on Talk Radio, AM 640 and ABFS. I'm the guy they call Space. It's just a view from space. That's all it is on Talk Radio, AM 640. You know, of course, I communicate with you only by one way besides this microphone. It's by email, spaceman@640toronto.com. One address, the other, space@640toronto.com. They come in from all around the world. And thank you for that one you've sent. Getting back into Pokemon Go, a step beyond Harry Potter. This is one of the biggest aspects of occultism being promoted now by the Illuminati in this 21st century, as we are bombarded with all kinds of black arts, ideas, and themes of evolvement, or should I say, devolvement, in our entertainment. The 21st century human being is craftily being conditioned, changed, brainwashed to accept the idea that all of mankind can evolve into beings possessing supernatural powers. Why? Because they're setting you up for the one that's to come. And that's who they call that person, the one. The one who is mentioned in the King James Version of the Bible as the Antichrist, who will be able to understand dark sentences, will impress with the super intelligence and knowledge that he possesses. It's stated in Daniel 8, verse 23, King James Version of the Bible. And in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to the full, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up. The Hebrew word translated as fierce means to be strong, mighty, greedy, powerful. These are traits and characteristics of an evil being. The Hebrew word translated as countenance means the face. And that's an interesting statement of where this one's power is located, this one that is coming, this Antichrist. On the face of every human being, you included, is an opening called the mouth. And this is the external expression device for the internal spirit inside of your body. Let me go again with that. Your mouth is the external expression device, technology if you want to go that direction, for the internal spirit that's inside of your body. This is the only way that internal human spirit inside your body can be expressed externally. It's by your words that come out of your mouth. So when Lucifer possesses the man that will be called the Antichrist, he will demonstrate fierce power coming from this man's face, or to be more precise, his mouth. He will be possessed of extraordinary intelligence. In Daniel 7:20, we are told that he has a mouth that spake very great things. As a wizard of words, he will surpass Demosthenes. His diplomatic skill will win the admiration and compel the cooperation of the political world. And in the early stages of his career, he appears, an allusion again to the opening segment of tonight's View from Space on Talk Radio AM 640, he appears as a little horn or power. But it is not long before he climbs the ladder of power and by means of brilliant statesmanship ascends its topmost rung. Like the majority of politicians, he will not scruple to employ questionable methods. In fact, it will be a diplomatic chicanery, an intrigue, that he will win his early successes with. The Pokemon Go app has been over-the-top promoted on the Illuminati-controlled mass media in such a short time to where it has now become the biggest sensation to hit the planet, even surpassing the previous record set by the game Candy Crush. All this week has been one story after another about this game and people playing it. Surely you've noticed. You couldn't help but. It's been everywhere, carried by every news agency. And it's not even news. It's programming, brainwashing. It's pushing the youth toward Goetia and the 72 demons. It's promotion, pure and simple. The power of the Illuminati-controlled mass media. That is that omnipresent technology today, everywhere at once. There have been stories every day this week filling screens. It all started right at the beginning of this week with an explanation of an introduction, really, of what the game was and how it was played. Then the focus shifted to just how many people were actually playing it, and the fact that millions of gamers were now, well, finally getting out of their basements or their bedrooms and getting out in the real world outside, finally. And that was touted as a great thing. Finally, those useless, mindless people were at least now outside doing something. But what is it? Then later this week, another shift to the real power of the Pokemon Go game, and that is to captivate its participants. Oh, look, that person's not looking where they're going and they tripped over the sidewalk edge or some steps they didn't see coming and took a comedic fall because they were staring into their screens so intently, so spellbound by the game Pokemon Go. With some even to the point of putting their life in danger, we were told, by being oblivious to the dangerous surroundings they found themselves in. All led there by Pokemon Go. Sleep deprivation, too, which is, by the way, a very large part of demon worship. There was even one story late in the week where some kids actually wandered over the Canadian-U.S. border because they were so oblivious as to where they were and where they wandered. They wandered into another country and were apprehended by border authorities. How about that one? Isn't that a great story? Happened in the southern part of Alberta, we're told, bordering the United States and 49th parallel. I can tell you right now, that story's made up. I mean, the hype by the Illuminati-controlled mass media was taken to astronomical levels this week. And what's so different about this summer fair, this particular game, Pokemon Go, what it's done that's so different? Well, it's that it's introduced something known as augmented reality to the world. It's the first. And it's been done through the gaming world. I've touched on this before with the new technology that's coming out, the virtual reality headset that you put on, and you live in a virtual world instead of the real world. And I've been explaining things like the real world will be so scary, so ugly, so awful that you will never want to actually participate in the real world. What you will want to do is stay in the virtual world because it's friendly and you know it more and you know it much better. So you don't want to go into the actual reality. And now you've actually moved your life from a reality of things around you that you can see, feel, touch, smell to a virtual reality that is made up and programmed for you, to you. Augmented reality is the new technology, mixing reality with fantasy or virtual reality. What's real? What's not? I don't know anymore. Thoughts of a coming generation, or a generation that's here now? I say an emphatic yes. It's coming in tighter and more controlling than ever before through the technology that no one can really truly understand or comprehend any longer. Spaceman, Talk Radio, AM 640. More next. It's the Spaceman, Talk Radio, AM 640. Emails to spaceman at 640toronto.com or space at 640toronto.com. And I thank you so much for the one that you've sent me. I really appreciate them. This new technology, mixing reality with fantasy or virtual reality, this new Pokemon Go game takes us to that next step, that next level the Illuminati want us to go, to live in that virtual reality world full time. What's real and what's not, you can't tell anymore. Augmented reality games that mixes the real world with a fantasy world. This new technology blurs the line between the virtual, unreal world and the real world. And that's the goal of the technology that is here today. It's so diabolically invasive. It's hard to tell some that they're so immersed in it. It's too dangerous. Come back. Don't stare at your screen all day. Everything you see on there is a lie, or it is twisted truth. It takes people who participate one giant leap forward in the evolution toward the coming digital matrix that I believe, and I have said many times on this show, one of the essential coveted goals of the Illuminati. The digital matrix monitors you 24/7. Dictates to you what to do, what to think, and ultimately who you are. It assigns you a new identity. Which Twitter handle? See what I mean? You have a new identity. You probably have about 6 or 8 email accounts. A different identity in each one. It's not real. It's not all you. You're making it up. living in this virtual world. You're something to somebody on one email service, and you're something to someone else on another. On Facebook, you're another. Oh, and by the way, the Facebook, you know the F? Think about this for a moment. Picture the F in your mind, the Facebook image, logo. It's a person standing with his head bowed, that's the curve on the F, with his arms outstretched or her arms outstretched at the waist, which is the line to create the F at the bottom, and that's the hand holding the cell phone. So the F is actually someone looking down at their device. And 8 out of, I want to say, 15 people walking by on a given period, gawking out the window on a city street, will have that F for Facebook shape. Living in that virtual world already. The digital matrix is coming, and it's coming faster than you want it to. It is consuming, taking us over. That's what technology does. There's soon to be no more independent thought. It'll all be controlled by the Matrix. What do you want to think your own thought for? They can give you one. The real world's too scary anyway. Here's the virtual world. Live in it. You're no longer thinking for yourself. You're no longer thinking independently. You're part of the herd. You all think the same. There is soon to be no more independent thought. It'll all be controlled by the screen, the Matrix. It's already been shown to you in predictive programming, as it always is, as I point out always on this show. It was in a movie called The Matrix. Surely you recall this from the explanation in the movie. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. The word red pill refers to a human that is aware of the true nature of the Matrix. The word red pill refers to a human that is aware of the true nature of the Matrix. Red pills are typically humans whose bodies and minds have been freed from the power plant by Zion in the movie Hovercraft teams, but humans still connected to the Matrix can also be aware of its reality. Usually, red pills encounter anomalies or glitches in the system, or may free themselves from physical bonds by exceeding human limitations. In either of these cases, other red pills find them and offer them freedom. These pills have a function. The red pill and blue pill gets its name from the color of the virtual pill given by a hovercraft operative who has rematerialized inside the Matrix as an avatar. An avatar originally meant to be an image of God, a reflection of God, not God, but what am I looking for? Like a representative That's a good word, simple word. A representative of God, an avatar. That's not what it is any longer. The avatar today is you. To a human still living out a life within the Matrix. You have an avatar in the Pokemon Go game as well, by the way. And you can shape it the way you want. Make it look the way you want. The pill is actually a tracing program in the Matrix movie that disrupts the carrier signal of the pod human's mind, making it possible for a hovercraft operator to locate the pod that holds the human and sending commands that force it to go offline and awaken its inhabitant. To remotely control the person is what's inferred here. Yeah, a remotely controlled human being. Humans who suddenly awaken appear to be instantly rejected by doc bots in the movie Matrix, who disconnect them from their pods' umbilical cords and eject their body to the old sewer system of the ancient human cities, where the hovercraft crew retrieves the freed human. It's important to understand that resistance members make it a rule to only free someone from the Matrix before they reach a certain age. Removing a blue pill who has lived long enough in the Matrix could be dangerously overwhelming for them to the point where they'd driven insane, crazy, or even suicidal in their inability to accommodate themselves to the real world. I tell you now, that is all of the gunplay artists that have been plaguing the earth and being passed off as radicalized terrorists. They're the blue pills who have lived long enough in the Matrix and are dangerously overwhelming by the Matrix to the point they're driven insane and suicidal because of their ability to accommodate themselves to the real world. There are occasional exceptions to this, such as when Morpheus in the movie had to free Neo in spite of his initial denial of the truth, as Morpheus truly believed he was the one. I talked about the one earlier. That's the one I mean. That's the one they mean in the Matrix. The one, the Antichrist. He thought he was the ruler. Morpheus believed he was the one. And of course Morpheus is taken from morphine. What it is? A dream drug. This is mind control at its purest form and its most potent form. Now let me even go deeper than a black hole here again. I want to take you back to the actual origin of the Pokemon Go app. The app itself, not the game. It was created by an Illuminati-controlled company called Niantic Incorporated. Now, the origin of Niantic Inc. began as a Google startup. One of Silicon Valley's big four leaders is Google, Apple, Microsoft, and Amazon being the other gargantuan three. The goal of all four of the Silicon Valley's big four, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, and Google, is to move us all into this diabolical black magic world of transhumanism, a world where all citizens will be ultimately controlled by Silicon Valley's digital matrix that they're building. Space back with more. Flip side of the break on Talk Radio AM 640. I'm the guy they call a spaceman. This is Talk Radio AM 640 and a view from space, name of the show. Communicate by email, space at 640toronto.com, one address. The other, spaceman at 640toronto.com. It's because of that matrix situation that we've just talked about, you and I together, that I am not on Twitter, that I do not have a Facebook page, I don't have a website, I don't have a cell phone. I weighed the pros and cons of this high-tech world we're entering, and I thought the downside was a lot worse than the upside. So I rejected its usage. But I understand it totally and know where it is going, as I explained tonight. Emails to Spaceman, of course, at 640toronto.com and spaceman at 640toronto.com. I get one from South Dakota here, from, let me call him TS. It says the following tweet was put out by a power distribution cooperative in eastern North Dakota. Cass County Electric puts out this tweet, and it's got, what else? A Pokemon. In bright yellow, it's the Zapdos Pokemon. And the Cass County Electric Company puts the picture up and says, atop, with a caption, never attempt to enter an electrical substation. Trust us, Zapdos isn't in there. We checked. Hashtag Pokemon Go. How about that? A power company in on the promotion saying don't go into a substation looking for Pokemon. So I was saying before the break, where did all of this come from? This power of the Matrix, this so-called game that's not really a game at all, it's a brainwashing and controlling device, has given the capability to its masters, the elites, even greater power than ever before to track and monitor its users' locations and their physical actions. This game can even lure its participants to places they would not ordinarily go, as I have just been emailed with. A North Dakota power company saying, stay out of our substation, Zapdos isn't in there. This game, as I said, can lure its players into places they would never ordinarily go. Would you walk into or try and climb the fence of an electrical substation? You don't understand how it works. You have no idea what to touch, what not to touch, and when to walk. Or would you even never go unless the game told them to? But if the game told you to, would you actually climb the fence and go and look for Zapdos in this electric substation? Did you hear me? This game instructs people to go where they would never normally set foot. Are you understanding now the evasive extent of the control here? And what's the most potent power is that the participant, the gamer, is willingly, voluntarily offering themselves to go into those places and go along with it. Not long ago, the concern was merely the government's surveillance abilities to spy on us that we talked about. But this augmented reality takes it a whole new level. Now, Niantic Inc., started by John Hanke, who was also the guy who started Keyhole Inc., by the way, which was done with the funding coming from none other than the CIA. Don't believe me? Just listen. Keyhole Inc. And remember I was talking about the lesser key of Solomon and Goetia? Keyhole Inc. Founded in 2001. It was a pioneering software development company specializing in geospatial data visualization applications, and was bought immediately after by this startup company, by Google in 2004 for somewhere around 35 mil. At first, it was launched as a spin-off of Intrinsic Graphic, that company. The first money investing in it came from a Sony venture capital fund in Japan, as well as a few others. See, big bucks are behind this. And then even more cash was thrown in at it from NVIDIA for Niantic Inc. Now, after that, get this, more money was given to it from the CIA's venture capital venture fund known as Incutel, with a majority of that money coming from the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency and from a guy called Brian McClendon, who later came on board as a member and vice president. I believe he sits on the board of Google. Brian McClendon owns a business also called Angel. Now, Keyhole's greatest contribution to this matrix of surveillance being set up, whether you're aware of it or not, was a company called EarthViewer originally. EarthViewer evolved into what we know today as Google Earth. That was back in 2005. That core technology is in Google Maps today, Google Mobile, and the Keyhole markup language program. Key technology to give the Illuminati complete dominance of surveillance systems. The name Keyhole is also connected with the KH reconnaissance satellites. KH, Keyhole. Originally, the eye in the skies for the military reconnaissance system, which is now some 50 years old. So the Pokemon Go app is actually a game that people voluntarily allow the Illuminati to track them, monitor their movements, which allows Google and other surveillance groups to see what they're doing in real time, live. What was the movie called? I believe it was Jim Carrey that starred in this thing. It was about a guy who was having his whole life filmed. He was on TV his whole life. You talk about invasiveness. That was really the first foray shot across the bow of us billions here on the earth by the elites who want to control our minds with this new technology. What's even more mind-boggling is that most of the younger generation doesn't even mind. They don't care about this total surveillance. It's because they've been systematically brainwashed through this new technology. They were raised with it. To them, it's normal. They've never known anything else. I'm the Spaceman. More next on Talk Radio AM 640. I'm the guy that calls space. It's a view from space on Talk Radio AM 640. Emails only. It's the way I communicate with you. Besides on your radio or on the internet. Space at 640toronto.com or spaceman at 640toronto.com are my two email addresses. Thanks for the one that you've sent. So the Pokemon Go app is a game that people voluntarily allow the Illuminati to track and monitor their movements, which allows Google and other surveillance groups to see what they're really doing in real time, live. That's so mind-boggling to me, because most of the younger generation doesn't even mind losing that kind of anonymity in the system. It's because they've been systematically, as I said before the break, brainwashed through this new technology. And they're the first generation that's really raised with it. So to them, they don't know any different. They think it's a normal thing to be monitored like this. But wait till, or maybe they are ready for thoughts to be interjected into their heads, and maybe that has already happened. So that they're not having their own thoughts anymore. They're just regurgitating what they've been told to think like. We're also being programmed to believe in a further evolved alien theory, such that when these demonic entities do show up, we can learn from them. Because the Illuminati are going to play the alien card. There are going to be aliens manifested, but they will be demonic. You see, it's simple human nature. Listen to me carefully. Man inherently wants desperately to have a guiding force. Religion does that. To tell us what to do. To give us rules to live by. If you destroy a people's religion and take it away, it leaves a void. So the Illuminati are using entertainment to fill this void, this vacancy of what to think, how to act, and how to live your life. Essentially, entertainment laced with the tenets of black magic power is taking the place of religion today. Today's entertainment is providing that. The Illuminati want you and I and everyone else in the entire world to place all hope that we can, one day and soon, summon these demonic entities, these aliens, to help and guide us. What the elites of this world, our overlords, are doing is a coordinated effort of the occult to bring about what Aleister Crowley called the Aeon of Horus and the New Age of mankind, whose goal is to evolve humans through transhumanism. The Illuminati have deployed all kinds of clever psychological traps in the most innocent-looking places. Pokemon Go, that can lure many unsuspecting people into the darkest of all spiritual areas. Through this new, highly invasive technology, all sentient beings in this world are now being subliminally taught the core principles through entertainment to facilitate this process of evolution and communicating with supernatural entities. Believe me when I say, if you're aspiring to be some kind of sorcerer in training, it will undoubtedly lead you down the path of the dark world of the occult. Till now, only experienced by the most dedicated occultist. People like Aleister Crowley. He's probably the black magician who is the most popular foreground figure of all in Hollywood and the music industry today. And also now in this new technology, he is considered being the one who invented backward messaging on music recordings. You've heard of that. Used by the Rolling Stones, by the Beatles, Zeppelin, just name a few bands. A great percentage of the rock, rap, hip-hop musicians of the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s are highly influenced by this occult black magician, Aleister Crowley. And sadly enough, it's often not even by their own choice. The satanic influence is something that is programmed into the artist's mind by the elites to serve a specific goal. Now, let me introduce the most popular black magician, together with L. Ron Hubbard, the founder of Church of Scientology, of today. Aleister Crowley had a significant influence on young people's minds in the 50s, right up to 2016. Aleister Crowley is the occultist and Satanist that is maybe the most well-known. His works, the Book of the Law, Magic in Theory and Practice, and the Book of Thoth are heavily used in occult circuits. Crowley himself didn't take much credit for having written them. As he stated, they were written by automatic handwriting, being channeled from a higher being he called Aiwass. This being, said to have lived in ancient Chaldea during the reign of Hammurabi around 1750 BC, but later, in his book Magic in Theory and Practice, Aleister Crowley identified Aiwass as his own genius. Himself. He was actually very proud of this book, which he used as a Bible for his own religion, Thelema. Crowley looked at a man as a sleeping god who gradually started to understand what powers he possessed. He also taught that Satan was identical with the Sumerian devil god Shaitan, whom he stated had been worshipped in the Egyptian deserts long before the ages of even the pharaohs. He was also a drug and sex addict and was addicted to both opium, cocaine, mescaline, amphetamines, hash, heroin, in order to perceive higher states of beingness. Drug abuse is super common to occultists in general. When he discovered mescaline, for instance, he developed 7 rituals. Rites of Eleusis, he called it, and rented Caxton Hall to demonstrate those for him. Later he opened up a temple of Satan in London, England, where many high society ladies became his pupils. By that time, Aleister Crowley had shaved his head, filed his canine teeth, so sharp his eye teeth, that he could initiate every new woman with a kiss of the snake, as he gave them a bite, either on the wrist or on the throat. You've heard me say this over and over, because it's going to be the only commandment in the new age coming. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. In other words, you're your own God in your own world. There is no one that is above you, and you call the shots. You do what you want. If you see fit, pedophilia. If you like little children, that's your prerogative. Who is anyone else to tell you that can't be? Do what you will. The whole of the law. The work of the Ordo Templi Orientis, his own religious order, is geared towards the achievement of a world-spanning empire. With the law, do what thou wilt. A one-world government. That'll be its motto. It was the motto for Aleister Crowley's religious order called the Ordo Templi Orientis. More next on Talk Radio AM 640. I'm the Spaceman. Emails to spaceman at 640toronto.com or space at 640toronto.com. CI writes, downloaded Pokemon Go, live near Vic Park in St. Clair. That's in Toronto, Ontario, Canada here. Not much around here, so guess where all the Pokemon are located? At all the nearby churches. Ah, spiritual. I get it. So, as I was saying about Aleister Crowley, the drug and sex addict talked to a demon called Aiwass, who claimed to have lived around 1750 before Christ, lived in Chaldea, got his information from that demon, wrote many books, runs Hollywood today, at least his ideas do, his precepts. One of his main ones, the biggest one, do what thou shalt be the whole law. In other words, do whatever you like. That's the new one world government motto. Law. Do whatever you want. You're God in your world, and no one is higher than you, so no one can tell you what to do. Aleister Crowley rejected traditional morality in favor of the life of a drug addict and a brutal womanizer. I rave and I rape, he once said, and I rip and I rend. It's a line from one of his poems. He even enjoyed being called the wickedest man in the world, a moniker that he wore half of his life. He was married twice. Both of his wives went insane. 5 of his mistresses committed suicide. Every woman he touched wilted on the vine. People who met Aleister Crowley verified that he had occult powers all right. And, as an example, William Seabrook actually tells this story. Seabrook wanted a demonstration of Crowley's powers. So, Crowley chose a man, at random, out on the street, follows him, imitates his walk. Suddenly, Crowley falls to the ground, but was rapidly back up on his feet again. At the exact same time, the other man fell too on the sidewalk. Crowley and his companion helped the man up, and he looked confused, trying to find the banana peel that he slipped on. Crowley was also the man who came up with putting backwards messaging into musical recordings, as I said. Stones, Beatles, Zepp, they all used it. Jimmy Page put a backwards satanic message on the mega hit Stairway to Heaven. Here's to my sweet Satan, it goes. Page also bought Aleister Crowley's mansion, by the way, in Scotland, and was, still is, a true follower of his teachings, as was the late drummer for Zeppelin, John Bonham, from the same group. Beatles also used backwards messaging. One of the more famous ones is Paul is Dead on the album, and on one of their albums, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. And Crowley's head is actually present on that cover. Top left-hand corner, I believe it's 4. Can't forget, I kind of forget now. It's in the top left corner, about 3 or 4. He's got a white beard. You have a picture of the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band album cover. He is there in the top left corner. Aleister Crowley was born in Warwickshire, England, where he revolted against a strict religious childhood. His father was a preacher, Christian preacher. He left his studies and became initiated into the Secret Order of the Golden Dawn. That was back in 1898. After some time, he came into conflict with his leaders and went to Mexico. From there, he traveled a whole lot. Went to India, Ceylon, where he studied yoga, Buddhism. Buddhism replaced his occult interests for a while, until, that is, he got a strange experience in Cairo, Egypt in 1904. By curiosity, his then wife, Rose, asked him to do an occult ritual. She then went into a state of trance and brought down a message from the strange being that talked to her while she was in this trance. She said, "He's waiting for you." She said, "Him" was Horus, the god of wars and the son of Osiris in the old Egyptian mythology. At first, Aleister Crowley didn't believe her, so he started asking her a few questions to reveal her as a fraud, but his wife, who didn't know very much about the occult at all, when she came out of the trance, she gave the correct answers. The message that was sent to Aleister Crowley told him to sit down by his desk at a certain time 3 days in a row. He obeys this instruction, and in these 3 days, he actually wrote the Book of Law. He says through automatic writing. This means one's hand is moving, but not by your own mind, but by another force. Crowley's messenger taught that the old age of Osiris would soon follow, but a new age of Horus. But first Earth must bathe in blood. There should be a world war. The Book of Law told about a race of superhuman and condemned the old religions, the pacifism, the democracy in it, the compassion and the humanity. All must go. Let my servants be few and secret. They shall reign over the many and the known. The superhuman continues. The rest of the message goes in the same spirit. The lower races should be humiliated and condemned and even killed. It taught no mercy. Long before the Roswell incident where a flying saucer supposedly crashes in the desert and dead alien bodies are found, Crowley made a drawing of one of his messengers called Lamb. The drawing is identical with the gray aliens with the big black eyes, and who nowadays are so well promoted in movies and among the abducted. You know, the typical alien depiction of a teardrop head, very round, with the dark eyes slanted. That's actually a drawing from Aleister Crowley's mind. It's been adopted in Hollywood today as the alien look. That weird ant-shaped head with the almond eyes slanted to a point at the ends. You know the one I mean. Big black eyes. The messenger also declared that Aleister Crowley was the beast 666 from the book of Revelations, chapter 13, verse 18, who had come to destroy Christianity. He tried to forget the whole thing, but from 1909 on, he started taking the messages seriously. Crowley then leaves his former occult teacher, MacGregor Mathers, who by then was a broken man. Mathers started actually a psychic war against Crowley. Now, everybody that read the Harry Potter books knows exactly what I was talking about when I said a psychic war. I have that information downloaded because it's been programmed to them by one J.K. Rowling, which was her job. Sell the youth on the occult's black magic powers. See, psychic war is very common among demonic initiates in all of the brotherhoods. Psychic warfare goes on all the time between human beings in these cults. Long after his death, Aleister Crowley became a hero for young people within the flower power movement of the 60s. And the irony in all this is that these young people cried for peace and love and adopted Aleister Crowley? Crowley, in his turn, welcomed the First World War as necessary to sweep away the old age and start the new one. And since he revealed his revelations, he became the head of the Ordo Templi Orientis in Germany, which actually gave him a great influence over similar people in Germany also. It's also well known that Hitler, in fact, was influenced by Aleister Crowley, and that Aleister Crowley himself actually tried to contact Hitler during the Second World War. Pretty interesting, because Thelema is a huge part, which is Aleister Crowley's religion, a huge part of the group, the Tula Society, that programmed Adolf Hitler. Aleister Crowley had some mighty powerful friends, too. L. Ron Hubbard of Scientology was one of his good buddies. So was Jack Parsons, the guy who invented the rocket engine and rocket fuel, the solid booster rockets and the liquid rockets that they use today, all masterminded by Jack Parsons. And JPL doesn't stand for what you think it does. It's actually the Jack Parsons Laboratory. Not the Jet Propulsion Laboratory as they state today. I'm the Spaceman. It's Talk Radio AM 640. More AVFS. Next. I'm the guy that calls space. It's A View from Space, Talk Radio AM 640. Emails to spaceman at 640toronto.com or space at 640toronto.com. Thanks so much for the one you've sent me. BJ writes, hey, Spaceman, ain't it something that this game Pokemon Go came out right in the middle of the summer and not in the dead of wintertime? And by the way, the bending of the spoons? That's a scene in the movie The Matrix when Neo is waiting to go see the Oracle. A little boy is in the waiting room and showing Neo how to bend the spoon with his mind. Yes, that's where we're headed. Aleister Crowley. Thelema. Thelema basically is like theosophy. It's knowledge. And the ladder of knowledge, the higher you climb, the closer you come to being a god. Aleister Crowley, cutting edge of this. So many of his tenets, his ideology, is in our entertainment today. And the so-called Babylon working, conducted by John Whiteside, Parsons, that's the guy who invented rocket fuel, and L. Ron Hubbard, the guy who invented Scientology. Babylon Working was a project ran from March 4, 1946. Had been the object of a lot of speculation, a lot of mythologizing, too, and wonder. People research what these guys were up to with this thing called Babylon Working. And I'm not talking about Babylon the country. I'm talking about Babylon, the Goetia goddess, whose consort is chaos. Babylon, a goddess deity in the occult. Now, this speculation is due in part to the involvement of a couple of charismatic and very brilliant men of that period. Jack Parsons, who died in 1952. It was a major force in the early development of solid fuel booster rockets, for which the International Astronomical Union eventually named a lunar crater in his memory. Yeah, Jack Parsons is is forever going to live as a crater on the moon. Seriously. And he was the guy that was using charcoal, sulfur, and potassium nitrate with dectin as a binding agent to make rocket fuel. But they would make it up in the morning, and in the heat of the day, when it reaches room temperature, it would just explode. And they, on the warmer days, when they had it already installed in the machinery, it would blow up the aircraft. And so Jack Parsons sat down and thought, well, charcoal, sulfur, and potassium nitrate with dectin as the binding agent is never going to work because it will never be cool enough. You will always be in danger of it blowing up at room temperature. So what he did was he swapped that out for something very, very simple. His rocket fuel today, which is used today, contains amide, cornstarch, and ammonium nitrate, bound together with the JATO unit glue with blotting paper. Ammonium nitrate is that very smell. You know when you pass a construction site and they're paving the road? They use ammonium nitrate in tar. That's also in rocket fuel. And that was the final ingredient that Jack Parsons stumbled upon, which did not explode at room temperature. Had to be lit first with a high degree for its kindling. And solid booster rocket fuel was invented. Jack Parsons, where do you think they got the ideas from? They got the ideas from demonology. He and L. Ron Hubbard got his controlling prowess of his religion through demonology. And did you know major corporations today actually use L. Ron Hubbard's style of control? You ever had at work a performance review? That's L. Ron Hubbard. Yeah. Checking you out to see if you're worthy. And when you need to be chastised, picking you apart for controlling purposes. L. Ron Hubbard. Use all of those mind control techniques to keep his flock in control. Major corporations to keep their employees where they want them. Some of his tenets are deployed today. So there was another participant, as well as L. Ron Hubbard, Jack Parsons, and Aleister Crowley. Did you know that Pulp Fiction was written by L. Ron Hubbard, who eventually founded the Church of Scientology, of course, and has been the center of stormy controversy every day since? Both men students of magic, especially the sexual magic, Aleister Crowley. According to Ben Corden, Hubbard once confided with his son, Ron Jr. He once said, "Secrets, techniques, and powers I alone have refined, improved on, and applied my engineering principles to. Science and logic, the keys." Here we go again with the keys. My keys of the doorway of the magic. My magic. The power. Not Scientology power. My power. The real powers of Solomon. Hubbard told his son Ron. Hubbard also made clear he was talking about the sex magic central to the Ordo Templi Orientis system, but with a unique twist. Hubbard once said, "Sex by will, love by will, no caring, no sharing, no feelings. Sex is the route to power. Scarlet women, they are the secret to the doorway. Use and consume. Feast, drink, she power through them. Waste and discard them when you're done." The idealist Jack Parsons could hardly have understood what sort of man he was dealing with. He wrote Crowley on the year 1946. "About 3 months ago, I met Ron," he wrote. "He's a gentleman. He moved in with me about 2 months ago, and although Maggie and I are still friendly, she's transferred her sexual affections to Ron." And so, while Parsons was convinced that L. Ron Hubbard, as he wrote Crowley, is in complete accord with our own principles, and proceeded to enter into a joint financial venture with the future father of Scientology, Aleister Crowley was writing his eventual successor of the Ordo Templi Orientis Grand Master, Karl Germer. "From our brother's account," he wrote, "he has given away both his girl and his money. Apparently, it's the ordinary confidence trick." Parsons' friend Alva Rogers, who witnessed those events as they unfolded, described Hubbard's role like this: "Ron was a persuasive and unscrupulous charmer, not only in social groups but with the ladies. He was so persuasive and charmingly unscrupulous that within a matter of a few weeks, he brought the entire house of Parsons down around poor Jack's ears. He did this by the simple expedience of taking over Jack's girl for extended periods of time." There's an interesting little bit of related information as to do with a footnote mentioning a 1962 Dark House article by the late and much admired Alva Rogers, by the way, found in another Parsons article too. He once said it might be worth pointing out that he has another Hubbard connection as the author of Requiem for a Unknown, a book on the fantasy magazine Unknown, edited by John Campbell, the editor who first published Hubbard's blatherings about Dianetics, which is a cornerstone of his religion. That was written in his science fiction magazine called Astounding. Space back with more with this triangle: Parsons, Hubbard, Crowley on Talk Radio AM 640. I got a call Space. It's a view from space. Talk Radio AM 640. Emails to spaceman@640toronto.com or space@640toronto.com. Thanks so much for the one you sent me. I appreciate it a whole lot. So the whole concept of the magical child has a few distinct interpretations. Now, this was a project called Babylon Working by Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard. And what it was, Babylon Working, was actually an experiment, an elaborate sexual magic experiment designed to bring Babylon into physical manifestation. Now, Babylon, as I said earlier, is a female goddess in Goetia, one of the demons in the Lesser Key of Solomon, and that magical, evil, diabolical book on how to conjure up demons. Babylon was this goddess that Parsons and Hubbard wanted to bring into physical manifestation in their presence. The whole concept of the magical child has a few, as I said, distinct interpretations. The more orthodox and traditional view, sex magic is employed to manifest by an act of pure will, a magical being, the material basis of which are the sexual fluids themselves. The more literal interpretation states that the magical rituals, like the star sapphire, will produce a moon child. That is, a living child who serves as a host to a super being. That is, the child to be the avatar for the demon, in Eastern terms, or an incarnation of the divine in Western thought. Yet a third interpretation is that sex magic is simply the yoga of sex, and the magical child is the transformed sex magician himself. I believe the moon child is in fact this: the one that will allow Satan be the willful king, allow Satan to possess him totally and fully, and will be the Antichrist. Satan will give him the power to arise up and dominate all men and become the leader of this one world coming government. The moon child. Hubbard and Parsons were directly going after the second meaning, literal interpretation, to manifest a scarlet woman willing to conceive a child who would embody the transformative goddess Babylon, who would bear a child, the moon child, that would be the Antichrist. Crowley once wrote Gelmer, his eventual replacement at the OTO, as the headmaster. Apparently Parsons or Hubbard or somebody is producing a moonchild. I get fairly frantic when I contemplate the idiocy of these louts. The reaction was certainly over the top. Crowley's successor as Grand Master of the OTO in the 1980s, Himeas Beta, stated that an adequate chronicle of Parsons' now famous Babylon working of 1946 had yet to be published even. There was more. Most published accounts focus on his friendship and falling out with the Church of Scientology founder L. Ron Hubbard, without appraising the larger problems that were actually being attempted and why. It was for certain, though, Jack Parsons' own description of the working Babylon is based upon fundamentals of ceremonial and sexual magic. In the Book of Babylon, Parsons outlines the entire experiment, including the reason for it. The present age, he said, is under the influence of the force, called, in magical terminology, Horus. This force relates to fire, Mars, and the sun. That is, to power, violence, and energy. This force is completely blind, depending on the men and women in whom it manifests, and who guides it. He said the catastrophic trend is due to our lack of understanding of our own natures, the hidden lusts, hidden fears, hatreds, resulting from the warping of the love urge, which underlies the nature of all Western people, have taken a homicidal and suicidal direction. And I would suggest that's pretty close to what's happening today. This impasse is broken by the incarnation of another sort of force called Babylon. That's the goddess demon I'm talking about in Goetia. The nature of this force relates to love, understanding, and Dionysian freedom, and is the necessary counterbalance or correspondence to the manifestation of Horus. That's the new age of Horus, bringing in the New World Order. Parsons is reasoning in a sound manner. Keep in mind, however, that he is working with his friend Hubbard. Then in the very process of walking off with all of Parsons' money and his woman, a man who was to tell his son a few years later to use and discard women. In what sense? Scarlet women, he said. The younger Hubbard asks, why scarlet? Scarlet, Hubbard said, the blood of their bodies, the blood of their souls, bend their bodies, bend their minds, bend their wills, beat back the past. In the disturbing public domain essay called Hollywood Satanism, Scientology and Suicide, you see examples of L. Ron Hubbard's heinous abuses of the female sex, described by his own kid, Ron. In my father's private circle, he said, there were a lot of mistresses when I was younger. I participated in private orgies with them, and 3 or 4 other women. His theory was that one has to open or crack a woman's soul in order for the satanic power to pour through it and into him. The sunset had got kind of weird, culminating in a variety of sex acts. He also said Dad had an incredibly violent temper. He was into S&M, sadomasochism, and would beat his mistress and shoot them full of drugs. When he was asked by an interviewer one time how this soul-cracking worked, the young son of Hubbard said, the explanation is sort of long and complicated. The basic rationale is that there are some powers in this universe that are pretty strong. As an example, Hitler was involved in the same black magic and the same occult practices that my father was, the identical ones, which, as I've stated, steer clear back before Egyptian times. It's a very secret thing, very powerful and very workable and very dangerous. Brainwashing, he said, is nothing compared to it. The proper words would be soul-cracking. It's like cracking open the soul, which then opens various doors to the power that exists, the satanic and demonic powers. Simply put, it's like a tunnel or an avenue or a doorway, pulling that power into yourself through another person, and using women especially is incredibly insidious. I'm the Spaceman. It's Talk Radio AM 640. More coming up on AVFS on the other side of this break. Someone got to call Space. It's a View from Space. Talk Radio AM 640. Accepting your emails at space@640toronto.com or spaceman@640toronto.com. Aleister Crowley claimed to revile and hate the work, particularly the 3rd chapter that he did in his book. Above all, for its barbaric and warlike diatribes and its ruthless rejection of all philosophies and creeds previous to it. Its total savagery as it let fly its war cry and word of the aeon, be it anarchy or be it harmony, do what thou wilt, shall be the whole of the law. These characteristics of ruthlessness, arrogance, blasphemy were, of course, rightly or wrongly traits that the world came to identify Aleister Crowley with. While there's a fair case in conventional history alone to be made for the fact that besides the secret fourfold word, the blasphemy against all gods and men, do what thou wilt, Adolf Hitler totally and wholly took on all of the central beliefs of that little red book Aleister Crowley wrote, known as the Book of the Law. Whether or not he actually adopted all in the book, the Law of Thelema, there's absolutely no doubt at all that Hitler was aware of that. book and probably took a certain demonic inspiration from it, especially the third part of the book that pertains to Horus, that begins like this. Now let it first be understood that I am a God of war and vengeance, and I shall deal hardly with them. I will give you a war engine. With it you shall smite the people, and none shall stand before you. Lurk, withdraw upon them. This is the law of the battle of conquest. Thus shall my worship be about my secret house. It continues, mercy, let be off. Damn them who pity. Kill and torture, spare not, be upon them. Argue not, covet not, talk not. Them that seek to entrap you, overthrow them. Attack them without pity. Give them no quarter. Destroy them utterly. Swift as the trodden serpent, turn and strike. Be thou deadlier than he. Drag down their souls to awful torment. Laugh at their fear. Spit upon them. Taking those words at face value, I'm sure you'd likely have appealed to Adolf Hitler. Don't you think? Who obviously was bent on leaving history in ruins, as he had done with Nietzsche, though Hitler twisted and distorted the words to suit his own purposes. Nevertheless, between Nietzsche and Adolf Hitler, it seems Aleister Crowley himself made no bones about it. He said once, before Hitler was, I am. He boasted, in imitation of Christ, who said the same about Abraham. Crowley's involvement in espionage on both sides of the First and Second World Wars. See, he worked with both U.S. and British intelligence, writing deliberately absurd, counterproductive German propaganda during the war. And it's well known, and now even well documented, but you know what? It's really hard to find any author anywhere who will admit to Aleister Crowley's involvement with Hitler, despite the fact that Crowley himself confessed, or more accurately, bragged about his association with him. The Illuminati have really done an incredible censor job keeping those facts out of the controlled press and the publishing companies, yet Hitler's obsession with the occult is well documented, and there are dozens of books on the subject, of different degrees of ludicrousness and sensationalism even. It even was included in the plot of the action movie Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's a well-known fact that he set out either to recruit or to persecute all practicing occultists in Germany, and Crowley eventually found himself on the to silence list also, which by no means refutes the possibility of their working together. Hitler publicly declaring he was out to get Crowley might have been a simple cover. Could have even been genuine, but as a result of the occult level and behind the political facades and the theater of war performed for the public, the most powerful factions, occult and economic, both Germany and England, were not enemies at all then, but allies, bound together in one great war for the conquest of men's souls and minds. This is in itself makes it highly probable that Hitler and Crowley would have met, and that some relation existed between these two guys of such different characters, but sharing so similar an obsession. Maybe it was even a relationship like Rasputin and the Tsar in Russia, and Tsaress of Russia, at around the same time. The one priest, the other king, and each equally benefiting from the favor of the other. Here's a quote from Crowley's Book of the Law. We of nothing with the outcast and the unfit. Let them die in their misery, for they feel not. Compassion is the vice of kings. Stamp down the wretched and the weak. This is the law of the strong. This is our law, and the joy of the world. In order to qualify such off-the-wall words, you need to take a quick look into the philosophy of war. You see, all warfare must be understood first and foremost as internal warfare, hidden. Then heated warfare between nations is no more than a brief outburst, sort of like an orgasm after years of foreplay. Wars are never won or lost. They're simply negotiated. And the world is transformed after it. And World War II might best be seen as the greatest business deal ever accomplished. It was billed as a battle between good and evil, or justice against crime. It was but one more in a long series of hollow dramas engineered exclusively for the fooling, the deception of the masses. It seems likely, though, that Adolf Hitler, in his bid for world domination or destruction, lost his head and alienated the very powers that put him in place to begin with. He became an unmanageable element, a loose cannon, and had to be removed. It's possible even that he was as guilty of betraying Chamberlain and Churchill as much as he was Stalin by setting his sights on the whole of Europe and so banishing all possibility of an unholy alliance between the two powers. Ideologically, they were perfect, compatible, but the same might be said of the United States, which also only entered the war when it was time, which was how the victory was denied Hitler. I am one of those people who believes that the defeat of the Nazis was anything but total. I believe they won the war, they just killed an army. And they morphed the League of Nations, which was only 45 nations at the time, that swore to never have anything as ugly as the First World War ever to happen again. And it actually happened not very long after First World War was over. Same combatants. Morphing once again the world into not a 45-nation League of Nations, but a 193-nation union called the United Nations. The next World War, the Third World War, will give us the one world government. Now you see what wars are for. You see, while to all the world it appeared as if Nazism suffered a mortal defeat at the end of the war, in reality it merely underwent a sophisticated facelift. Behind the wholesale destruction of Germany and Hiroshima and the empty facade of the Nuremberg trials, another occult agenda was being pursued, that of establishing a secret treaty between the Nazis and the Allies, specifically the American intelligence community, through which Hitler's goals and dreams would be suddenly resumed. I mean, after all of the great minds in science and technology that Hitler had went to America after World War II to continue the job. I'm a spaceman at Talk Radio, AM 640. More next. It's Spaceman. Reachable at space@640toronto.com or spaceman at 640toronto.com. Got some information you'd like to pass along? Just want to say hi, or where in the world you're listening to AVFS from? Feel free, and thank you so much for that. So I was saying, I don't believe that the Nazis died after the Second World War. I believe they're still living today, and they are leading the world today, and are just morphing into this new form. For instance, all of the Nazi scientists were taken out of Germany and given to America and given to Britain. The space program of the United States of America, run by Werner von Braun, the guy who ran the jet and the jet propulsion and the entire Luftwaffe of Adolf Hitler. And all of the science projects that were created to, I believe they had a jet engine at the end of the Second World War. Really, before the end of the Second World War. And were actually being flown. And were seen occasionally. And used in fighting. As a matter of fact, that's where the rock band, the Foo Fighters, actually get their name from, because the American pilots and the British pilots that used to confront these jets called them Foo, which is a French word for fire. Foo. Because they weren't prop jobs, propeller-driven aircraft. They had fire at their tails. A jet engine. Werner von Braun. And, of course, the whole entire space race that America got involved with, which was a phony charade also with the Russian countering them, the Russian space program. So, as can be seen by the activities of the U.S., the British business, statecraft, occult groups, aristocracy, the Nazis were no isolated phenomenon. Only one expression of a multifaceted and murderous worldwide game still going on today. Shortly after the collapse of the Third Reich, General Reinhard Gehlen, the Nazi spy master, and the Knight of Malta to be, by the way, began negotiations with Allen Dulles in the American OSS, that's now the United States CIA, using Nazi intelligence networks as a whole card to provide for its own survival and the survival of its huge spy network. Gehlen, General Reinhard Gehlen, made a separate peace with Dulles, resulting in the clean grafting of Nazi spy apparatus to the American clandestine services. He was the birth of the CIA and a part of the nexus of betrayal that continues to this day. And the CIA are front and center, believe me, in the war on terrorism. If you bother to research this, and there's an ever-growing amount of literature on this subject, the evidence seems to speak for itself. The CIA alone, one of the smaller of countless similar U.S. intelligence organizations, which built itself up around a nexus of ex-Nazis, has been responsible for as much havoc and the wholesale slaughter in Central South America as the Nazis ever accomplished during the short reign of terror in Europe. The art of war, then, like business, has been to make itself as smooth and as efficient as possible, as silent, secret, and sustained an affair as the explosive, unpredictably, of the work itself will allow. The ultimate war machine, military, medical, industrial complex, designed to serve man in just precisely that fast food chain that's been serving cows for the last few decades. All the unpleasantness is under the counter. War itself, as a commodity, must be sold to us as appealing as any other product. Not only to be sold to the public, but to actually be advertised and glorified until it is desired and consumed willingly. So war then becomes not just a condition, but an actual necessary part of life. Because we're headed for World War III. The warlike nature of many of the passages of Aleister Crowley's book, A Book of the Law, would seem to be a direct response to this. Hitler himself was doubtless inspired to both immorality as a world savior and thought of his actions as an insane mix of the best intentions by the very worst of methods. Hitler believed that worldwide destruction was a necessary thing by which to pave the way for the new evolutionary step for mankind. I believe the Superman. And Hitler didn't acknowledge any god or savior, but was firmly persuaded of the existence of this Superman. The new man is living among us now. He is here. I have seen the new man. He is intrepid and cruel. I was afraid of him, said Adolf Hitler. Whether or not Hitler was referring to Crowley here, and I doubt it, it seems more likely he envisioned some kind of superhuman entity. It's impossible to say, and it doesn't matter, but Hitler's preoccupation with the Superman thing seems to be parallel to Crowley's own claims of affiliation through Iwas, his guiding spirit of the occult world, with the secret chiefs, namely the preter-human intelligences, which rule the occult over the destiny of mankind. Crowley himself also considered contact with these beings the next inevitable evolutionary step for mankind as a whole. And it's indisputable fact that the SS, by the way, who used the lightning bolt style SS on their uniforms, and Nazism as a whole was established upon an occult basis, and that its entire structures and purposes were not merely political, but also magical, as in black magic. You see, the whole apparatus of ceremonial magic has conceived and adapted by the Golden Dawn and its offshoots, many of which were directly influenced by Aleister Crowley, that formed the true inner protocol of Nazism. Originally spawned by the Thule Society, is dedicated in theory to the one single end and purpose of contact with extraterrestrial forces. To achieve this end, the world must prepare itself vigorously, mind, body, and soul, for contact, lest he be driven mad like Hitler, diseased or even destroyed by the catastrophe, the catastrophic nature of the encounter. And yet Hitler was an ordinary, even mediocre guy. It seems as though he knew little or nothing about the forces which possessed him, and was at most a low-grade medium, adept with a deranged sense of self-importance. Aleister Crowley said this much once: I never met someone as demonic as Hitler. Why do you think I spend so much time with him, and come when he bids me? I tell you, only the universe can prevail against Hitler, but the universe for the present doesn't seem to be interested. Although Hitler is the enemy of the universe, that is to say, of God, for the universe is only God's instrument. It is as if God said, let mankind learn a lesson. They need to open their eyes a little wider. Hitler will do that for them, Aleister Crowley once said. Just wait. They will see things that men have never seen or heard before. Such horrors that there will be no word in the German or any other language to describe it. I'm the Spaceman. It's Talk Radio AM 640. More on Crowley and his Hitler encounter when I return. It's A View from Space on Talk Radio AM 640. I'm the Spaceman. Emails to space at 640toronto.com or spaceman at 640toronto.com. An encounter with Hitler and Aleister Crowley. The guy who pushes the 72 demons of Goetia that are in the Pokemon Go game hung out with Hitler. Conversation, Hitler: "Are you an angel of darkness?" Crowley answers, "You'll find out in good time all about me. For the present, I'll say this. If I were an angel of light, you wouldn't want to know me." That's been a fable from the age of paradoxes, a fairy tale, if you like, about a good war that never was, that still rages, and yet has to be fully understood or divulged by history. Myth, logically speaking, doesn't seem an excessively arbitrary or irresponsible leap of the imagination to then propose this, that if Hitler was archetypal, if not an actual fact, this century's Antichrist, and if you would say that he might have been, then Aleister Crowley, the man in the shadows, qualifies, even as he so carefully fashioned himself, as his corresponding to the beast. For men assume the temerity and audacity to play the roles of the gods and the mischief that they can shake the foundations of the earth. We're still shackled to the power of myth, even if we now prefer to call it history, and still caught under the spell of magic, even if we choose to call it politics. You have to shudder to think that this myth story that is yet to be completed, and that the prophecy as yet remains unfulfilled. Yes, Aleister Crowley, revered in this world. L. Ron Hubbard, revered in the business world. Two facts that no one would ever say would be true, but is in fact the truth. And Aleister Crowley, his god, Lucifer, even wrote a hymn to Lucifer, who is the coming religion, the new one to replace Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. Luciferianism. Aleister Crowley wrote this to Lucifer, his god: "Where, nor of good nor ill, what aim hath act, without its climax, death, what Saviour hath life? An impeccable machine exact. He paces an inane and pointless path, to glut brute appetites his sole content. How tedious were he fit to comprehend himself. More, this is our noble element of fire in nature, love in spirit, unkenned. Life hath no spring, no axle, and no end. His blood a bloody ruby radiant with noble passion. Sun-souled Lucifer, swept through the dawn colossal, swift aslant. On Eden's imbecile perimeter, he blessed non-entity with every curse, and spiced with sorrow the dull soul of sense. Breathe life into the sterile universe with love and knowledge. Drove out innocence. The key of joy is disobedience." And what's the connection between UFOs, the Roswell incident, gray aliens, Robert Heinlein, L. Ron Hubbard, Ozzy Osbourne, even Jimmy Page? Solid rocket fuel? Well, it's all Aleister Crowley. The common thread. Yeah, another connection to Aleister Crowley. One of his disciples, a self-taught chemist, John Parsons. Werner von Braun called Jack Parsons the true father of American rocketry. Parsons was one of the original scientists involved in early rocket technology, specifically the chemical formulations for solid rocket fuel. He also did a lot of work with jet-assisted takeoffs, which allowed aircraft to take off from shorter runways. The group he worked with, California Institute of Technology, eventually morphed into the Jet Propulsion Lab. That's actually the Jack Parsons Laboratory. And it's curious then why Parsons' story is so foggy, to say the least. It's because they want to cover up what he was really into, Aleister Crowley's views, and the Ordo Templi Orientis. And Robert Heinlein's A Stranger in a Strange Land, although wasn't a musician and probably didn't play his music backwards, Parsons was involved with two rather famous writers, L. Ron Hubbard and the one I just alluded to, Robert Heinlein. Hubbard and Heinlein were both friends of Jack Parsons, too, and they shared his occult interests in magic, as well as the inspirations from Crowley and Thelema, the religion of Aleister Crowley. Parsons and his group attempt to create an incarnation of the goddess Babylon, as I said. The purpose of the Babylon working, according to Parsons, was to create this entity, this ushering in of the Aeon of Horus, the New World Order. And some argue that this is being manifested in the form of an alien being. Heinlein's involvement is further supported through Stranger in a Strange Land, where the concept of Thelema is put right there in the book, but cleverly coded, by the way, in the text. And evidence from the Church of Scientology suggests that Hubbard was sent in by the government to dismantle the group of black magicians, including Jack Parsons. And another Church of Scientology statement claims that Hubbard actually broke up the group as though he completely opposed Parsons and never participated in what happened. It seems the church tried to clear Hubbard of any involvement with Parsons, his entourage, or any of the black magic goings-on that group got into. But I'll tell you now, for a fact, that these men influenced business, rocketry, and so many more things, business, more than any other three. Yeah, I have to say, there is not a single person that contributed more to what we as a people work with today in our corporate business. You run into L. Ron Hubbard's ideas. When you're in technology, it's Jack Parsons' ideas. And now with this new religion on the verge of being made manifest, Aleister Crowley. As I said, the god of the entertainment world. For centuries, those who diverged from the norm were branded as outcasts, mostly a knee-jerk reaction brought forth by the inherent conservatism, but sometimes the label's justified, as in the case with Aleister Crowley. More next on Talk Radio AM 640. It's a Spaceman, Talk Radio AM 640 at AVFS. Final segment of tonight's show. KV wrote, "Don't forget the Manhattan Project," mentioned that, a joint venture between the Americans and the Germans. And I'm writing from Oak Ridge, Tennessee, built to accomplish this collaboration. It's also my hometown, and I can tell you with certainty that it is satanic to the core. There is Illuminati symbolism everywhere, besides being a very uncomfortable place to spend time. There's an aggressive revisionist history campaign going on to make sure we have more of the same with no idea what has happened to us. Thanks for the info, Space. Where else can we get this stuff? You see, the ancient idea is behind all this. The ancient idea, the plan to bring back the system that was known as Atlantis, the Golden Age, was revived by the Rosicrucians in the court of Elizabeth I and pushed out there as an ideal for something to work towards. It was thought to be the ideal society or system to rule and control the entire earth. Sir Francis Bacon wrote the book called The New Atlantis, where he laid out the entire plan to achieve this goal for the elite bloodline that originated with Cain himself and Satan as his father. I didn't say it. It was a prediction. It was a plan, which I'm sure he knew he never came up with himself. The plan was for a country to rise up in the West and would be called the New Atlantis, but only known by that name to those only in the Brotherhood, under secrecy. It would have a superficial government, run like a democratic-type government or republic, but in reality, it would be run by secretive bloodlines, made up of a council of wise men to govern it. Also a superior group of scientists, adept in all of the sciences, including psychology, to apply the technique of mind control on the masses. Guess what that country was that was spoken about there? It's the New World Order, the One World Government, the globe as a nation. Bacon talked in his book, The New Atlantis, about how this country would be a great trading nation, and yet it would keep itself in a sense isolated for a period. He wrote how it would run on virtue, all the Masonic virtues, yet the people, the general population, would never know they were being guided and run by a secret brotherhood. The New Atlantis was to control the world by its virtue and its power, but it would keep the sciences secret, even from the public. Very few people would get into labs, which Sir Francis Bacon said would be 3 miles inside mountains or else 3 miles deep, but always hidden from the general populace. That was no exaggeration, because even in Bacon's time, they were keeping the sciences hidden from the public. Bacon was an advisor. He tried even harder to be top advisor, but couldn't quite make it to kings and queens. In some of his writings, in his essays, you'll find it's the same thing as you'll find with Machiavelli. These were about the tricks, about the tactics used to manipulate people on how clever, wise, and sly they were when it came to the understanding of the masses. It's very revealing to read his essays and what he thought of the people. He was a complete elitist, had no problem accepting the fact that there were differences in categories of intellect, intelligence, and what he called stations in life. He even goes into that in the New Atlantis book. Since that book came out, of course, it's been, well, their source for inspiration. The Illuminati's source for inspiration. It was also used to promote more secret societies. If you connect all the dots, as they say, you'll find secret societies are connected at the top. Even the ones who think they're fighting each other are connected at the top because they're specialized. They have specialized functions. Some of them control Roman Catholics. Some of them control Protestant sects. Others control Jewish and Muslim sects. But they're all connected at the top. And they all have to be chartered. Chartered means to be established and enabled for exclusive use. All the charters that have been given can be traced back to the Grand Lodge of England, Masonry. It doesn't matter if it's the French Grand Lodge, the Grand Orient, or whoever. They're all chartered, one after the other, and controlled by the Grand Lodge of England. Even the Scottish Rite of Freemasons, which wasn't Scottish to begin with. Donald Trump rose because of this Grand Lodge of England. They are pushing, no, they are legislating their new religion, and it's sun worship. As Albert Pike, the famous Freemason, said himself, the same Pike, by the way, told us Masonry is not a religion, also tells us every Masonic lodge is a temple of religion, and its teachings are instruction in religion. What religion? Not Christianity, not Judaism, not Islam. Masonry is a religion which simply demands belief in God, immortality, and salvation by character. Masonry includes all elements of a religion of naturalism. Gaia is the earth goddess. They're legislating us to worship under the guise of the environment and climate change. Look at Freemasonry's ancient landmarks, its sublime ceremonies, its profound symbols and allegories of teaching and impressing by frequent repetitions or admonitions in all forms of media. They hold religious observances and say they are teaching religion and religious truth. So who can deny that's eminently a religious institution? Masonry is a religion. The Illuminati use psychology to control the masses with tools like the internet, television, movies, satellites. The job of pushing ideas and making them stick is a whole lot easier than it ever was in the past with all that type of equipment. Herbert Spencer was the man who brought out the idea of revolutionary psychology. This is all tied up with his theory of evolution types, superior types, and inferior types. You think Adolf Hitler was the only guy who came up with that? No. There were men behind Hitler who were pushing his belief system before he was even born in the German branch of this, under the guise of science. There are white-coated scientists whose names are never revealed. They are the new priesthood. That's what they are. With all their theories, calculations, and they have woven together to create the proof for this big lie. Individualism is the only enemy they have today. I spoke about it earlier in the first or second hour of tonight's show. There is no more independent thought. The Matrix. Your screens are telling you what to think, how to react. 5 years ago, America, no chance they would ever give up a gun. Nothing. Not true today. Poll out just recently, over 57% of Americans today believe they should now ban semi-automatic weapons. See how much it's changed? Because of their impetus to change. keep putting people out there deranged to do these shootings, and that handful of deranged, drugged people who are goaded into doing these things by psychiatrists with psychotropic drugs controlling them, gets you to take guns away from every single freedom-loving American. You know why they want the guns off the streets? Because America is going to crash, fall. The American dollar is going to die. When that happens, there are going to be people out on the streets looking for food, shelter. And the authorities do not want to face a massive amount of angry people with arms. Take them away now and then crash their system. It's all coming. Could it be with Donald Trump? Time will tell, and it won't be long. This has been A View from Space on Talk Radio AM 640. Coast to Coast is next. I'm Space, and I'm out.